No, not at all. And speaking of that game, so I was lucky enough to go to that game. Dave Safaro, shout out again to him for getting me credentialed. I was able to get on the field pregame, was in the press box for most of the game, and then I was able to get on the field for the fourth quarter, which was super, super cool. I got a sick video of Marvin Harrison Jr. Scoring a touchdown that really put the game away. That was an awesome experience. Made the loss sting a lot less than previous years, I'll tell you that way. That place was rocking, man. Penn State was interesting to me because a lot of Penn State fans after that game were coming at James Franklin and saying, you just can't win the big game. You can't beat Ohio State. You can't beat Michigan. Now, that's true. And a lot of them were saying, it's time to move on. Who the heck do you think Penn State can get that all of a sudden you're going to be beating Ohio State and Michigan on almost an annual basis, man? I don't understand. James Franklin is basically as good as Penn State can get. I think a lot of Penn State fans need to look in the mirror and say, hey, this is where the program is right now. This is who we are. Penn State, Drew Allar is the first 5-star quarterback Penn State has had since Christian Hackenberg about 8-9 years ago, or 10 years ago now, actually. Ohio State last year had C.J. Stroud and 2 5-star backups in Kyle McCord and Devin Brown. Right now, they have 2 5-star quarterbacks on the roster. They have another one coming in next year. These are not the same teams. These are not the same programs. Penn State shouldn't be expected to beat Ohio State. It should be hoped, but it shouldn't be expected. So that's the big thing I want to take away. Big thing I want to take away from this game is we said it all the time. This Penn State offense is not a playoff contending offense, and it showed in this game. Now, Ohio State is one of the best defenses in the country. They proved it in this game, but man, from the receiving core just did not help Allar at all. I think that is a big weakness of this offense right now is that receiving core. There's not a dude in that receiving core. The offensive line is below average at best, man. The run game actually was pretty solid, but they got away from the run game. Drew Allar gets a lot of the hate. I thought he was fine in this game. I don't think any of the fault should be placed on him. The coaching also, I think the play calling was terrible in this game. They had a 3rd and 13, they ran the ball, 3rd and 5, they ran the ball, and they didn't go for it on 4th down either time. So when they ran the ball on those plays, I was like, all right, they're playing for 4th down, they're playing for a closer 4th down. They kicked the field goal right after that. So it's like, why on earth would you not give Drew Allar even a chance to convert on those downs? So, yeah, 1 for 16 on 3rd down, man. This is a terrible performance from the Penn State offense. But, again, this is Ohio State we're talking about, people. This isn't like some bad team. This isn't like North Carolina losing to Virginia this past Saturday. So, Penn State fans, way too harsh on James Franklin. But, yes, this offense is very concerning, and I will say the defense that we said could be a little bit of fool's gold with the offenses he played. They actually looked really good against Ohio State too, so I think this defense is legit as well.
Yeah, I agree. No, the defense, there's nothing wrong with the defense. Their defense was good enough to win this game.
Yeah,
they caused McCord a lot of problems. The penalties on the one drive killed them when they had the scoop and score that would have turned the game around. I mean, they outside of a couple penalties, the defense, they were spectacular. They went into Columbus and held Ohio State to 20 points despite all the adversity. No, I think you mentioned a good thing about Allar being the 1 5-star quarterback. And honestly, I look at Penn State's offensive talent. It's just not there. No. Fashanu's going to be a top 10 pick, right? Great pass protector, that whole thing. But we've said this for weeks. They can't run block. Allen and Singleton are both really good players. Neither one of them is Saquon Barkley, right? The receiving core, we've been talking about them with the drops and being unable to separate. And look, Allar, to me, honestly, I don't think Allar was particularly good in this game, but I also think you're handcuffed on a team with really no weapons against arguably the best defense in the country. It's going to be hard. I think it was 10 for 33 before a handful of completions late. This is going to be a long-term project, this offense, because you're going to lose your best player and your left tackle in the draft. I think they just showed us what we were suspecting, and we just needed to see it on the field. It's just not a particularly great offensive foot. Their defense is going to have them at the end of the year. They're gonna finish 10-2 in all likelihood. I think they're probably still good enough to beat Maryland. I think they have Maryland this week or next week. Michigan's going to beat them probably even a little more soundly than Ohio State did. They're going to be 10-2, and they're going to make a decent bowl game, and it's going to be same old, maybe 11-2, maybe 10-3. It's kind of, I hate to say it like this, but they're clearly the 3rd best team in the Big Ten, and it's kind of same old Penn State. It's not any different than when they had Hackenberg or Sean Clifford or anybody else who's been in there. And it's the one thing I wonder about Franklin more so than the play calling and anything on the field. What's on the field is just a product of what you have at this point, right? They're less talented than Ohio State. Can he add talent like that at the skill positions, especially that can put them over the top? We're used to seeing this team with Saquon Barkley and big time receivers and guys like that in the past. I just don't see. I think you're just short on talent.
Yeah.
I really do. I think they're just a beefed up version of any of those other Big Ten teams. I mean, it's like if Iowa had a more like an average offense, is that not just Penn State?
Yeah, honestly. And it really is just kind of like, yes, it's hard, but it's so hard to recruit at that level, man. It's just like, that's where Penn State fans, I think, get a little too big for their bridges, honestly. And I say this as a Penn State fan, where it's just like, dude, you got to know who you are in the national landscape. Like, that they have this idea of Penn State as should be a national title contender every year. And it's like, no. They don't spend enough money in NIL. They don't spend enough money on the facilities. They don't do that. Ohio State does that. So I think that's a big problem. And yeah, you mentioned the weapons, man. I think Ohio State you could make an argument. They might have 4, 5 receivers that would be Penn State's number 1 receiver right now. Like, that just shows you how the talent gap between these two is so severe.